Thanks, Nisa. I'm delighted to be joined today by Emmanuel Goh, co-founder and CEO at Skew. Emmanuel, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
No, it's great. So let's talk a little bit about Skew. Why did you start the company, and what problems did you foresee when you started the company that you were trying to solve?
Yeah, so we are actually turning 2 years old this week. We started the company in September 2018. We are a team of 16 people right now. We are all based in London in the UK. So before starting Skew, I was a trader at JPMorgan for most of my career, and I was trading single stock options there. So I've been working in the markets. I think joining, arriving in London in the first place in 2009. So I think for me, we've seen a lot of growth, I think, in the technology sector. That's really like what the last cycle is about. And at the same time, I think I've spent a lot of time working at a very large bank, and I haven't seen as much innovation, I think, in terms of really leveraging all those new technologies to build, I think, better products. So I think today, like for a large bank, updating Python from 2.7 to the next version is gonna be like a multi-month, if not year, project, to give you like an idea. So I think we looked at crypto. So we saw we are late mover to crypto. I really looked at it in 2017 when we had the big boom. So in a way, we are a bit like, I think a lot of the talks, especially at the end of 2017, were about institutions entering the space, which was primarily dominated by retail initially. And I think we are part of that trend. So I work all of my career on really the institutional side, like servicing very large institutional clients when I was at JP. My co-founder was doing the same at Citigroup. And then on the engineering side, we have people that are coming from all the large banks, from Goldman to Morgan Stanley, UBS, Citigroup. So I think that's probably like a good half of the team. And then some other people have been actually doing, especially in our front-end team, just developing products for these large corporate clients. So I think we really have that in our DNA, and I think it shows in our product in terms of we are really kind of targeting those clients that we used to serve on the banking side. So that's really, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about those institutions. So the recent Fidelity survey that came out indicated that there's a strong growth in institutions wanting to gain exposure to Bitcoin via the CME futures, for example. And many of these firms will already have clearing relationships in place to enable that access. So what benefits do your institutional clients gain by accessing CME via Skew? And what features are in the pipeline that are unique to crypto? So you're saying you're kind of a late arriver.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So just to come back a little bit, I think we see crypto as this industry with just a lot of potential, really, and I think it's still very niche, and it's got a lot of room for growth. And so, we have crypto, it's got a lot of potential, new asset class, a lot of room for growth, and then you have the very big world of finance, which is very, very large. And so what we are trying to build is really that bridge, that front end of crypto for institutions, so that they can embrace that new asset class like they did before with commodities, for instance. So we have two products. One is a data analytics platform, where you can see in real time those very, I think, fragmented markets, and I think initially also markets where the quality of data was not even very easy to assess. So I think we are doing a lot of work there, and we are trying to position ourselves as a leader for the products that really matter for institutions. So that's futures, options, and we recently kind of upgraded our coverage to the spot market. So we start to see more. We have more than 1,000 firms that are signed up on the platform and that are using us to track the crypto markets on a daily basis. So what we think from there is that, most of them actually are really, I think, in what I call the homework phase. So they are not ready just yet to consume and enter crypto markets, but they feel like there is a need really to get a better understanding of how this asset class is going. So, what we think is that from there, some of them, maybe a lot of them, will want to start consuming those products. And so what we want to give them is a way to do it from our platform, so that you really kind of side by side all you need to kind of enter enter this market. And so what we are trying to do here is really do something really clean with the workflows that they are used to, where we are mindful of things like credit risk, because institutions, they are very mindful about that. What is our regulatory setup? How do we have any conflict? Like, do we trade on our platform? We don't. What sort of products do we make available for them? So really, we've kind of tried to think about that from the ground up. And so that's where, when you think about CME, CME is the largest derivative exchange in the world. They are home to the S&P Minis futures, which is really the bread and butter of futures market for anyone that's been, trading equities at least. And so it's a very natural choice, I think, for people. I think they have already to answer so many questions about, is crypto dangerous and why crypto, that it makes their life easier, that at least they are trading in a framework that they are familiar with. So what can we bring here? I think, historically, when you look at the futures market, most of the trading activity is going to occur directly in the order book. But when you go into products that are a bit more complex, like options, you tend to see that liquidity and the trading starting to occur off the order book. So it's kind of negotiated outside and then reported to the exchange. So our trade execution platform is essentially an RFQ service where you can be connected to a number of market makers to get a price, get liquidity, a good price for CME options. And then we're gonna report it on the exchange so that you don't have to face us in terms of clearing.
And what are you guys doing around capital efficiency? How do you envisage users trading across both these regulated platforms and potentially crypto native derivatives that aren't regulated on unregulated platforms?
So not all the firms have the same requirements, I would say. So some of the prop trading firms are kind of lightly regulated or unregulated. Usually they are managing their own money, so in a way they can do pretty much what they want. And so they will tend to show preference for the more kind of what we call offshore venues, where you have more of a retail flow and potentially also access to more leverage and margin, which is making the whole thing more capital efficient. When you talk to a bank, the story is going to be a lot different. They will already face, I think, a lot of questions just to trade the CME contracts.
Sure.
It really depends. I think in my mind they are kind of we are building the bridge between crypto as an asset class and traditional finance, but this bridge kind of works both ways. And I think there are really like two buckets in my mind of potential customers. There are really, those large institutions where we want to build like a platform that makes sense to them, and the crypto native firms. And sometimes, those firms are going to want to increase their exposure to the traditional side of things, where we can also help, especially on the analytics side.
So how far, understanding your clients' appetite and, their risk appetite and, their adoption appetite, how far away are we from firms with high regulatory requirements like banks being able to seamlessly trade CME Bitcoin futures and within indeed that kind of crossover in the unregulated derivatives and so on?
That's a good question. It takes time. I think we are definitely in this homework phase. And so, there are probably a number of firms that have already put in place the right infrastructure so that if they want to move, they can move quick. But My view in there is that there are a lot of people that have done now the homework for a little while, and what you need really, I think, is the push on the client side. And I think this push on the client side is really driven by price. And because I think crypto is this asset class that's very new, that is, to be frank, quite complex to comprehend. And so there are a lot of people that would feel more comfortable if it would just disappear, I would guess. So,
Sure.
So you need price basically to force them a little bit to revisit the asset class on a regular basis. And I think, there is really this level of Bitcoin, the previous all-time high, which was at $20,000. And I really think that, if we get there again and break out, then the clients will ask a lot of questions all of a sudden at the same time. And that probably kind of, give enough, business case for some of the banks to say, okay, I think now we can do it.
Yeah.
So it's far and close at the same time, but I think it's all you need is I think just a little help from the market.
Fabulous. Well, and I think one of the things that institutions do have a requirement around is that clearing. So I expect that you guys are looking at that clearing challenge as well as crypto evolves. What role does Skew play in that part of the field?
Yeah. So our view, and that comes back to this initial point of leveraging great technologies to build better products, is that it's the best time probably to build a fintech. Like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel for every single time for everything. So what that means is that we don't want to be a custodian or doing clearing or collateral management. That's not what we want to do. We want to actually leverage some of this infrastructure that is really hard to build and usually is heavily regulated and requires a lot of capital, and just build on top of it. So, I think that's pretty clear in our mind, and I think that's why we've got very good relationship with most of the exchanges and custodians out there, and because we are just a good partner.
Fantastic. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining us today. Fascinating conversation.
Thank you.